Happy Chinese New Year! I looked up how to say Happy New Year in Chinese or Mandarin, and it's and then I practiced it. 新年快乐，新年快乐. I always wanted to learn Chinese or Mandarin. I heard one time in my life that when you're talking about the language of Chinese people, you shouldn't say Chinese persons, or you should say, or you shouldn't say, sorry, Oriental, because Oriental apparently describes objects, and people are not objects, obviously, so you shouldn't say Oriental people. But also that Mandarin is the correct thing to say about the language of the people of China, because it's similar to the way we say we speak English in the United States. Now, of course, we don't speak American, do we? Even though we are from the United States of America, we speak English. In a similar way, you don't speak Chinese, as I understand. You speak Mandarin? No, I could be wrong. But I'm gonna have some low-calorie shirataki noodles. And the word mukbang is Korean. If I believed in reincarnation, I would say I was once Korean in half-life. And not just because I like so many Korean things, because people like Italian food, people like Chinese food. They don't feel like mostly they were Chinese in a previous life, or they were Italian in a previous life. But what always amazes me, what has been amazing me, is that I eat in a certain way that I thought was just me weirdly eating. It was weird combinations of food. But then I find out that Koreans eat that way normally. And it just blows my mind, and I almost believe in reincarnation. I'm an atheist, of course, but even me sometimes has doubts about reincarnation. But there's probably a logical explanation about, well, for example, let me give you some evidence. If I have leftover rice, I often just eat rice, some seaweed, nori, or other seaweed that I have, and kimchi. And I thought it was just me being hungry and like being a barbarian, because I am. But then I find out that it is a common Korean snack or meal. How did I know that? Because my husband went to go buy me a huge jar of kimchi from a Korean store that we live near, or a couple of minutes away. Oh no, it's all dark. better go give you some light. Hi, Annie Belly. A fetch. Hi, Sprinkles. You don't want any of this. This is nasty vegetarian vegan food. Doesn't even have fat that you like so much, Mr. Sprinkles. I know I'm backlit, but I don't care. Another example is I just recently learned from Mommy Tang, my favorite mukbangers, that you can make some soups with like a stock, vegetable stock, meat stock, whatever, and you use leftover cold rice to kimchi, not soya kimchi, not as good as actual Korean store kimchi. But I add cold rice to like hot things. Hot liquidous things like a soup. You just add cold rice. You have leftover rice, you add it. And it turns out Koreans do that. I thought it was me just being a lazy pig. But no. It's industrious. Does anyone eat shirataki noodles? They're not anywhere near as good as real noodles, but if you're watching your calories, they are acceptable. I have a confession to make that I think, and I've thought this for a long time, I'm probably wrong rationally and scientifically, but you know, I'm not perfectly rational. But my instinct is to believe that Chinese people are superior culturally. Not racially and all that stuff, but culturally. Because, I mean, I've always admired their culture. They respect their elders. You know how in Western cultures or around the world there's this youth obsession? They kind of throw you away once you reach a certain age, like 40 or 50, because you're not a pretty face to look at. But they respect their elders for the most part. That's a value that their culture holds. And again, I know it's a stereotype, but the evidence bears out my assessment. They generally do very well in grades because they value grades. I admire that. They value studying. Are grades everything when it comes to a person's intelligence? No. Some people would do very poorly on IQ tests, but they would be highly intelligent in other ways. For example, music. IQ tests are everything. They don't measure an entire person. As far as written languages go, I think Chinese is one of the most beautiful languages written, if not the most beautiful, because it's an art. I mean, actually writing it is an art. I mean, English had that for a little bit in the form of calligraphy. When I was a little girl, I had a calligraphy set, and I loved to write calligraphy, but we've lost that. We've lost that art in our culture. When I was little, you know how you brag about things you haven't done yet? Like, when I grow up, I'm going to be an astronaut. When I grow up, I'm going to learn 5 languages. And you haven't done anything. Yeah, I did that too. There's a song that has that in their lyrics. I've tried to look at the song. It's like an old 60s song. And part of its lyrics is, we bragged about things we hadn't done yet. And that's so true. Because, I bragged about all kinds of things in high school or middle school or elementary school that I hadn't done yet. Or even done now. For example, I'm trying to remember, this was in elementary school, so a long time ago. I remember bragging to my female classmates. We were talking about languages and learning languages. And I said, I'm going to learn Gaelic. I'm going to learn Chinese. I'm going to learn this and that. But now that I've tried to learn language as an adult, I realize how difficult language learning is. I also admire polyglots. My dog wants me to throw this. I mean, I knew about people who knew 5 languages and more. Polyglots. In fact, I was told by my family that my great-grandfather knew 8 languages. Oh, and he was Greek. So you don't realize how difficult skills are when you're a kid, of course. And, I wish I had started earlier learning languages than as an adult. But, better late than never. It really gives you an appreciation for the foreigners and the immigrants that come to your country, whatever respective country it is, that don't speak your language so well. And it's very common for example, in the United States, people complain that foreigners don't speak English very well. But they themselves don't know another language. And then themselves don't know how hard it is to acquire another language, especially as an adult. Now I understand partly where they're coming from. I mean, it's just natural to think you've been here for 20, 30 or plus years and you still don't speak English very well. I understand that bewilderment, but oh, and a confession. I thought that about my my grandmother. She was here in the United States for over 50 years, but she spoke broken English till the day she died. And I thought, well, you just isolated yourself. You didn't want to learn English. And I disrespected her for that. Well, maybe that was right, but me, I had never tried to learn language from the age of 35 plus, like she did. I had never come from a country where I was thrown out of my home because of a war. I was never traumatized because of a war. And she was. And my uncles and aunts were. She didn't want to come. You know, she'd rather have kept her home that was stolen. And on Christmas, she used to cry. And I thought it was silly that she would cry because she would say there were times where we didn't have anything. And she'd just be focused on the times in the past where in past Christmases they didn't have anything. And I just thought, well, you're not there now. You have a house, you have things, all the things you need. Why are you still crying about that? But that's how post-traumatic stress disorder works. PTSD robs you of your enjoyment of moments in the present. Unless you've been through it, you don't know what it's like. I have a couple of regrets when it comes to my yaya. I mean, I wish I had tried to learn Greek. She was around and I could try to talk to her. I'm a second generation immigrant and I only know a few words in my parents' mother tongue. This is not that good. But all of the cousins are like that. All of the descendants of the aunts and uncles are like me. They don't speak Greek. I don't know why that is. I mean, all you have to do is talk to your kids. I mean, we go through the process of language acquisition through our parents talking to us. And you don't need Noam Chomsky to tell you that. You know, all you would have to do as a parent to teach your kids your mother tongue is to talk to them. They don't go through grammar school to learn how to speak. And so by the time you become an adult or a high schooler, your school or you tries to teach you a second tongue, you want to be perfect. You don't want to go back to being a kid and make all these grammatical mistakes. And our desire for perfection gets in our way of language acquisition. By the way, I think the basis for Asian food, the staple of their diet, is much healthier than, of course, Western staples. Rice is life. Rice allowed Asians to build magnificent civilizations, as did corn in the Americas. And I would encourage you, if you are of Asian descent, to try to stick to your ethnic foods as much as possible, because with the westernization of the world's diets, the way that Americanized foods are becoming more and more popular and traditionally thought of as second or third world, is killing you. It will kill you like it kills us. You don't want to get adult onset diabetes, type 2 diabetes, higher incidence of cancer, higher incidence of Alzheimer's. You don't want to become obese. And these diseases that were formerly restricted to kings and queens, gout, obesity, are becoming commonplace with us. They already happened. Don't desire to live in, well, don't desire to eat like a Westerner, at least. Eat your traditional foods. In the Americas, instead of rice, you had corn, potatoes from Peru, you had quinoa. The people were healthier. I don't think one civilization is necessarily so much better than another, but as an outsider, I can see superiorities that lie within Asian cultures. Maybe it's aspects that we've lost in the West that we used to have, that they retain. I feel it's kind of rude to say Happy Chinese New Year, because arguably you could just say Happy New Year. The way we measure time is completely arbitrary. I mean, you could start from year zero right now. And this is year zero. It's space age. Instead of BC or AD or CE, we still wrap our culture around Judeo-Christian measurements of time. Largely because I think it will be a lot to disrupt that in the banking system, but it's ethnocentric, which has no justification. Another thing that used to be bragged about things you haven't done yet, like in high school. My boyfriend, the first boyfriend, it's really pathetic that I would say that, but we just like hung out in science class, said that he was going to show everyone when he comes back for the reunion, like the 10 or whatever year reunion, he's gonna make them jealous with his helicopters because he was gonna make a lot of money. And I understand that too. But I really think, like, if you go to bed at night thinking, well, I showed them with my millions I made in hedge funds, however you make millions nowadays, I don't think you sleep better. I don't think you love more fully. Snobbishness does not a character improve. There's an element of revenge to wanting to be better than your peers at high school reunions, of course. Because you want to say, they were so cruel to me. They picked on me, they made fun of me, they bullied me, and I financially, socially succeeded above them. I understand that. But what you need to understand is what will make you happier is to move on and forget about them. Anyone who bullied you. Because living your life to the fullest is revenge enough. Happy Chinese New Year. Bye.